these days of games. It's like you just want, come on, can we? It's a game. Well, how much time left? I mean, it's just like you're just living for the puck to drop. Or as Ted Cruz would have said, the little round thing. The little black ring thing. So, it's clear now that Ryan's going to come around and get in line. They're just doing it sort of slowly. And so the Republican Party will sort of unite, kind of. And everyone's saying that they think Trump now will back away from almost everything he said during the primaries. What I want to know is if he does, they'll probably figure out how to hold the Trumpanistas, the people who just love him, and how to keep them from feeling like, I guess, Trump's been paid off, bought off, co-opted by the establishment. I don't know. But I guess I was sounding pretty freaked yesterday and saying that, oh my God, we gotta, we're dead. Can you imagine? Oh my God. And we got this email I just want to share with you from someone who's been a Hillary supporter from day one, I believe. And she writes, frankly, I will be working not just for Hillary, but for a landslide. Because, as Bruce Bartlett says, a Trump landslide loss to Hillary is the only thing that can save the Republican Party. You want to save it. Keep in mind, working for means not taking it for granted. The number crunchers say there is not much of a path for Trump. I don't trust any of the crunchers anymore. I don't trust any of the old, all these people who are the people to go to. Like a Nate Silver, he's the number cruncher. And he was wrong on in a lot of instances in regard to Trump and his strength. So the numbers, all the numbers do now is terrify me. But I don't put a lot of faith in them because Trump has blown up the norm, and we do not have a particularly sober electorate in this go round. I don't know. Okay, so she says the number crunchers say there's not much of a path for Trump. McCain and Romney both won white women. Hillary leads with white women. That's a huge turnaround. Then, of course, there are all the other non-white males and females. Yeah, I was saying to a friend last night, I guess, we just got to hope that black Americans and women save us. It's what we got. Blacks, Hispanics, and women have got to save the republic. Or what's left of it anyway. And the emailer says, and how many more, like Christine Todd Whitman, who's now supporting Hillary, that we simply don't hear from. They're just the Republicans who can't, are just lying low. Don't forget, she writes, that while Trump's primary opponents were afraid to really go after him for fear of alienating his fan base. That's interesting to call it a fan base because that's something we use for entertainers. In the political sphere, we usually say voter base, don't we? But you're right. The emailer's right. Fan base is probably the more correct term. Okay, his primary foes were afraid to really go after him for fear of alienating the people that they would then want to pick up. Hillary ain't going to have such compunctions. Hillary certainly would save the opposition research for later, for the general election when people are paying more attention. Most people have not heard of Trump's past dalliances, his ex-wife's rape accusations, the Chicago Five. Not sure what that is myself. Even Woody Guthrie's old song about Trump's father. But none of that matters. What does that do? All the things Trump has done have been out there. Nobody's really swooned and said, well, then in that case. Caller.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Hey, I'm starting to rethink his Trump thing.
Oh, dear. Now where are you?
He pulls closer into the conservative thing with, like, Ryan's ideas and that.
Mm-hmm.
He'll lose. Because what's making him be so appealing is his populist views.
His anti-establishment persona.
Right.
So
if he pulls closer to the
I think so, too.
Conservatives, he'll lose.
He'll lose some of his most ardent supporters.
So I hope he does.
But he might gain some of those Republicans who thought they couldn't. Who the hell knows?
Well, that's true, too. Now I have to rethink it again.
That's right. Truer words were never spoken. What the hell do we know? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay, so have you heard about, Woody Guthrie actually was living in, did you know about this? Did we ever talk about it? Woody Guthrie, at one point, is living in one of Donald Trump's father's properties in Queens, excuse me. And he can't help but notice it is blindingly white. And it turns out that Fred Trump, Donald's lovely father, from whom he learned so much, including being a bigot, it was known that he wouldn't rent to black people. And he had all kinds of ways of showing, things weren't available. Yeah, it's not like he was the only landlord who did such things, but Woody Guthrie, of course, was sickened by it, and he did write a song, and here are part of the lyrics. I suppose old man Trump knows just how much racial hate he stirred up in the blood pot of human hearts when he drawed that color line here at his 1800 family project. Now, I know that New York Times did a piece on this at one point. So, yeah, in this regard, the acorn didn't fall far from the tree. He is his father's son. He is a bigot. Make no mistake. He's a bigot with the sort of patina of New York sophistication because he has to travel in that most sophisticated metropolitan area on time. So he hobnobs with all types. He's used to different people. Diversity doesn't freak him out. But at heart, I think he's a bigot. Anyway, Deborah, who's sending us this, says, in the 1970s, the Justice Department sued the Trumps, accusing them of discriminating against blacks, not to mention all his failed businesses, bankruptcies, fraud, mob connections. He's really nothing but a pampered Twitter troll. Yeah, well, that's, yeah, but I just don't see how those kinds of allegations or facts don't make a dent in his fan base. They might keep away, yes, independent voters who don't like. I'm just worried that a lot of people are just going to stay home. Whatever. I noticed in the pictures of Ryan for the first time, he has no lips. He has no lips. How do you even kiss if you have no lips? He has sad, beautiful eyes and no lips. He does look a little Lincoln-esque, I think. I said look. Okay, well, let's change the subject, all right? Obituary of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Lane. Mark Lane. You know the guy. No? He's dead. He was 89. He was a media hound. He was a lawyer. He was an activist. He was a troublemaker. The blockbuster book he is most known for, and here's where some of you will say, oh, yeah. The blockbuster book was published in 1966, and it was called Rush to Judgment. And that was the first book that begot thousands upon thousands upon thousands of others, because it was his takedown of the Warren Commission. And it was well done. It was on the bestseller chart for years and years. I mean, created all kinds of difficulty. He then, actually, it was he in that book who termed the green expanse the grassy knoll. You know, that term, think of that term, the grassy knoll, is such a part of the American lexicon. And this is the guy, Mark Lane, who described that greenery in Dealey Plaza in Dallas thusly. And he was arguing that it was from the grassy knoll that a second shooter had to have shot. Geez, and then he represented the Native Americans at Wounded Knee. These are all back to the people who, I'm not going to go into what Wounded Knee was if you don't know what it is. And he really, I don't know if he just became a conspiracy buff or if he was right, but after Dr. King was assassinated in Memphis, he right away jumped on that and looked into it, and he was all over that and decided it too was a conspiracy, and he said that the FBI had involvement in, and I never read, and then he went on, he was a defense attorney, he went on to represent James Earl Ray, the man who was convicted of the assassination. But his attorney was Mark Lane, who really felt Ray was set up. He also, from the Rush to Judgment, he felt the CIA was involved in the Kennedy murder. So he fingers the CIA for Kennedy and the FBI for Dr. King's assassination. But listen to who else he represented. He represented Jim Jones. Do we remember Jim Jones? Jonestown, Guyana. And that story was so unbelievable, and still is, that 900 people would commit suicide together because the minister was telling them to. He was his attorney, and he was down there in Jonestown the day of the mass suicide, the day that the congressman, Leo Ryan, remember, had flown in to look into what he had been told was this bizarre situation involving some of his constituents down there in Guyana. So Congressman Ryan had flown in, and as you know, he was killed, assassinated, along with some other his aides. And then 900 people were forced into drinking that Kool-Aid laced with cyanide. And Mark Lane was there. One of the few people to survive. And he survived by taking off like a bat out of hell through the jungle. He, of course, got a good book out of it called The Strongest Poison. So, anyway, Mark Lane, really, he lived a life. Almost like a Zelig type, seems to be at all the major events. And in fact, he befriended, his friends ranged from Bertrand Russell to Eleanor Roosevelt to Dick Gregory to Jane Fonda. I don't know. Okay, so just one more little thing about Trump, his butler. Have you seen the butler? The ex-butler? He was his butler for 30 years. 30 years. He loves him. He loves him. They love each other. Mr. Senecal. Anthony Senecal. The Secret Service now says it will be investigating the butler. It's like a game of Clue. He is under investigation for things he has said about the President of the United States, of course, on Facebook. Never mind the vulgarities, never mind the racist stuff. Here is the thing that I got the attention of the Secret Service. Trump's butler, ex-butler by a year or so, wrote that Obama, with the last breath I draw, I will help rid this country of the scum infested in its government. Obama should be dragged from his white mosque and hanged from the portico. Count me in. Trump's butler. What a lovely home he must have, amidst all the tacky grandeur, being waited on by this hate-filled butler, this racist butler who's right on the same wavelength. Oh my, these two are so close. So close. This guy says, I know everything about Mr. Trump, everything. I know the right way to cheer him up when he's down. Of course, I know what foods he wants. I know his sleeping patterns. He could tend to the Donald. And once, because the Donald was really down, you know what this butler did to cheer him up? This is a hell of an employee. He hired a bugler to play Hail to the Chief when Trump walked in. Ladies and gentlemen, the next president of the United States. As the Donald's going to the bathroom. Oh, dear God. Okay. Donald Trump will make an agnostic pray. That's what I have found. His power is such that I find myself saying constantly, dear God in heaven. Hey, something apropos of absolutely nothing, but I've been wanting to wing by you. Two things. Wilkinsburg police. So I have a number of friends who live in Wilkinsburg, actually. But I was at dinner with one the other day, and she said how she finds the Wilkinsburg Police Department so forbidding. And I said, why? And she said, because they drive around in cars with blacked out windows. You can't see in. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Those windows are illegal, are they not, for you, me? Why would cops have blacked out windows? She says it's quite clear. It's to add to their menacing. They already have power. They are armed. They can kill you. They have. I'm not sure, but it's an odd thing. I do find it odd. So the people that they serve can be watched through their dark lenses, but cannot look back. There's something so wrong about it that I just want to throw it out there as just a general protest, seemingly a small thing, and I would imagine a police force that is still overwhelmingly white. I don't know what the percentage of black officers is on the Wilkinsburg force. And I don't know if that information is readily available. Have you ever seen, Celine, you live in town, have you ever seen a black policeman?
Yeah, but I can't remember if they were city of Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I think I recall one. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in Wilkinsburg, too, since I live right near it, but and go through it all the time. But, to have overwhelmingly black population policed by an overwhelmingly, I am willing to bet, white police force that hides behind black windows that would be illegal for you and me to have in our cars. I just find that creepy and sort of a metaphor almost, right? A metaphor. Okay, so the other thing is, nothing new. This is the complaint of a driver of a car about a biker. I didn't raise my hand about being a biker. I'm not a biker. I mean, I can ride a bike, but I'm whatever. Anyway. Will someone tell me who's in the right in this situation? I was at the waterfront development in Homestead. It was a few days ago. I am exiting the facility, and I make a turn onto the Homestead high-level bridge. I am making nice progress along with all the other gazillions of travelers because it's rush hour, and it's packed going up and down Browns Hill Road. Packed. I am intending to make a right turn up at a light, and I get in the right lane, and I make a nice progress. All of a sudden, we come to a stop. Everybody else is moving to my left in the next lane. We are stopped. Then we start crawling. We are going about 5 miles an hour up the hill. And I'm thinking, what the... I can't see. I've got a sort of low car, and the one in front of me was a big one, and I couldn't see around it to see what the hell is going on. Well, here's what was going on, not surprisingly. It was a guy on a bike. A guy on a bike in the middle of the lane, of a full car lane, going up that extraordinarily steep hill. Obviously, he could not go. He was going like 3 miles an hour. And because there's traffic on the other side, he held up. You know how big that hill is? There was a line of cars down to the river because one guy on a bike would not move over to the curb. I think he's supposed to be at the curb. We're supposed to give him, I forget what it is exactly, 6 feet, whatever. We're supposed to give him leeway. Now, granted, that would be tough given all the other cars. But he... So the one biker gets to have the entire road, hold it back, keep the cars going only as fast as his legs could go up that hill. And I'm sorry. I mean, granted, a friend of mine who's a biker said, yeah, so what did it take out of your day? So how much time were you put... I said, I really don't even think that's the... We're supposed to share the road. That goes 2 ways. And bikers who simply flat out take. The biker friend of mine also said there's no bike lane there, and he probably took the whole lane because he wanted to stay alive. Okay. It's rush hour. He was the one biker on the hill, and he gets to set the limit, the speed limit. I don't know. Something's wrong. Something's wrong with that. Something's wrong with it. They need a bike lane there. They don't need a bike lane that is so wide it's a joke. What do you need bike lanes that have 2 lanes going this way and that way on Penn Avenue downtown? Why do you need that? And my biker friend said, yeah, it's true. You don't need anything that wide. And what's really weird, having been on it, is it dumps you off in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't go anywhere. I mean, you get dumped onto just a regular, ordinary street with no lane. It's bullshit. And now there's 1 lane where cars used to have 2 in the middle of the cultural district where people are driving in from all over the place to attend cultural events. But there's this unused swath of concrete with 2 lanes in it for bicycles. I just want to say, here's where I come down. Bullshit. Thank you very much. And some of my best friends are bikers. Chuck writes, Lynn, since about 2004, I've been following a website called electionprojection.com, which is run by an armchair data analyst named Scott Elliott. He's just a guy with a passion for numbers. Long story short, he projects election winners based on multiple polls, and he seems to get it right every time. I just don't think this time is a regular time. I think we're in a weird kind of a thing, a blip. Anyway, according to this guy's website, if the election were held today, Hillary would win by 136 electoral votes. Scott's showing the battleground states, which are currently leaning Trump, as Georgia, Mississippi. Well, of course he'll take Georgia. Those are leaning. Georgia, Mississippi, Ohio, South Carolina, and Texas. The battleground states leaning Clinton are Arizona, Iowa, Minnesota, North Carolina, and Utah. Utah? I don't think the Democrats run. Oh, no, that's Nevada. No, that's Utah. He's showing Pennsylvania is more solidly in Clinton's pocket. He's quick to point out that even if Trump wins all of those battleground states, he would still lose the election by 21 electoral votes. Trump has a big mountain to climb. Yeah, I know he does. And I do not discount his obvious ability to defy the odds. This is the last stop. We have seen, how many obituaries have been written of his political career this year alone. Then add in the ones from last year. It's a joke. And people, for some reason, have an inability to believe that which they don't want to believe, which is this guy could be the next president of the United States. You will say, I doubt it very much, or probably not, or the numbers aren't in his favor. Fine. That's what they were saying before. He has blown up expectations. He has blown up all these number crunchers, the data analysts, the pollsters. Nate Silver was supposed to be, he was it. What Nate Silver said, because he called everything in the Obama race. Everything right on the numbers. So he is like the guy you go to find out what's going to happen. He's the seer. He's been wrong a lot this time because the numbers ain't working. I also think numbers aren't working for another reason. I believe a lot of people who are going to vote for Donald Trump won't admit it. I truly believe there's a ton of people who are going to vote for him and never own up to it. I mean it. They might say, I wrote somebody in, or I voted for the Libertarian, or whatever. But they will not say it, but they will vote for Donald Trump. By the way, I told you that when you turn onto my little teeny street, I'm now assaulted by a Trump sign right there. And at least the homeowner right across, there was never been political signs on that street because it's like a dead end. Why? You want to announce to the few people on the street who you're voting for? What's the point? But the Trump guy who's new to the neighborhood put up his Trump sign. And the woman across, very nice British lady, she put up a Hillary sign. So when you drove in, you had Trump, Hillary. Guess what? The Hillary sign's been missing for 4 days. So now it's just Trump. And I keep thinking, come on, put up another Hillary sign. I can hardly bear it. The only sign now is Trump. So did you see this thing about how the Russians stole the Sochi Olympics? Did you see this? You know, I sort of like that Russia's back being the Russia of my youth. It's like, oh, goody, the Soviet Union's back. Because they were a great enemy. I mean, even I got into, like, hating them and fearing them. And they're doing it again. I mean, we're reminded, Putin is just, he's just perfect. He's perfect. These guys, it's scary. They're coming back. Jesus. So, the guy, the head chemist who helped all these athletes in Sochi, the Russian athletes, with their doping, is now in Los Angeles, and he is talking and talking and talking and talking. Meanwhile, his two compatriots who didn't get out of Russia in time have both somehow died unexpectedly 2 months ago. He ran, they died. It's not like they were doing something that Putin didn't want him to do. They were working with high-level people in the Kremlin because Putin made clear this is in our house, Sochi, and we were humiliated last time around when it was in Canada. The Russians came in, I think, fifth or something in total medals. In the Winter Gate, they were up. Putin said, people's heads were on the line. We were hosting these games, and we are going to win these games. And they did. We now know that at least 14 of their medals were won by doped-up athletes. Doped-up athletes whose urine specimens were exchanged for clean. They had an operation, literally with a hole in the wall. They worked with at night. Every night, these scientists would be dealing in swapping out urine and blah, 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 and making cocktails of this guy's design that he mixed with alcohol and insisted that they hold it under their tongue and wash it around in their tongue and get it in. And the men's alcohol, he had, I think, scotch. And for the women athletes, he had martini vermouth, which would be awful, right? But why make a different one for the women? That's classic Russia, too, all right? Even when they're stealing bragging rights at the Olympics, they're still being sexist pigs. Okay, so, but there's a 2.5-page story in the New York Times today detailing how they pulled this off. And it's pretty amazing. I think this guy who's in L.A. is going to end up dead anyway. Russians who fall out of favor end up dead no matter where they go. Remember the guy got the plutonium in his in London, and another guy stabbed by an umbrella, and I know they get these people. Okay, so here, Russia finished 6th in the medal count at the Winter Olympics in Vancouver, and Putin put everyone on notice that was not going to happen when they were in Sochi. So the Russians did. They came out on top. Now, this begs some questions, does it not? So we got an Olympics coming up in 80 days in a country that appears to be falling apart. Brazil. The president has cleaned out her desk. She is suspended from office while they impeach her, or while she's on trial. And the Olympics is 80 days away, and the vice president has now taken over in Brazil, and he threw out all the cabinet members, including the guy in charge of the Olympics. So 80 days before, and there's the waters the aquatic sports are in are apparently so polluted, the people are worried that athletes will get sick. Some athletes are saying they won't even compete. Then you got the Zika mosquitoes flying around, scaring the bejeebers out of others. But here's the question. What's with the IOC? International Olympic Committee. What's with them? You know that the Russians stole medals from a whole bunch of worthy athletes by cheating. It's known. You don't, suspend them from the next Olympics or something? There's no There's no punitive action taken. I know there was something with another organization that did put a suspension on. I don't think the Russians on the world stage are competing in track and field right now because of doping. But you got you think they're not doing the same thing coming to, I don't know. It's just beyond me. There's another totally gummed up organization with no credibility at all, the Olympic Committee. It put it right up there with, FIFA, however it's pronounced, a soccer organization. Just corrupt to the core. I used to be so into the Olympics. It's hard to get in now. We know too much. Remember when we were innocent? Damn. So the Pirates won't go to Puerto Rico to play in this game because of their fear of the Zika virus. They've canceled 2 games there. I think that might be a little bit of a little silly myself, but they're monitoring for the mosquitoes that carry that nasty little disease in Allegheny County. We're already being monitored. Hey, in case your nightmares, were not populated by enough horror with Donald Trump and what? What are people scared of these days? Donald Trump, ISIS, not the same people. Mexicans, not the same people. Climate change. Oh, you're such a lefty. Climate change. Right. Zika mosquitoes, Ebola. Oh, Lyme disease. We're big on Lyme disease here, and that season's coming up. Whatever. But it seems like there's always something to be terrified about, and I just want to keep you up to speed. So, if you're interested in such thing, it's quite an article. An insider in Sochi tells how Russia beat the doping tests. They worked on this. They were at work for 4 years after the Vancouver Games because they knew they had the next ones and they knew heads would roll. And in fact, heads have, even though they did what they were supposed to do. But then it leaked out that they got caught. And that's why this guy took off and ran, because he was going to acknowledge it. And the other 2 who were with him end up dead. That Putin, I'll tell you. Okie doke. And what else we got here? Okay, so did you see a group of Sanders volunteers and people who had really been working with him? Maybe not at the very top, but close enough. He had to lay off a whole bunch of people in offices all over the country. A group of those supporters who have worked so tirelessly for him have drafted a proposal that asks him to step aside, but in a very strange kind of a manner. Here's what their manifesto says. It says they're calling on him. They love him. They're calling on him to suspend his presidential campaign after the California primary, which is in about 2-3 weeks, and to concede that Hillary Clinton has, in fact, bested him and won the nomination. And then they go on to suggest that an independent organization of Sanders supporters be, organized. An organization gets organized. And it will be completely independent of the Clinton campaign, but its sole purpose will be to defeat Donald Trump. Now, that's interesting because, if you're going to defeat Donald Trump, then that would mean that you're going to vote for Hillary Clinton. There's no other way. You don't defeat Trump in any other way but voting for Hillary Clinton. But they want to have still some autonomy in the manner in which they do it. And a spokesman for the Sanders campaign said this: "We are focused on winning the Democratic nomination. This document is something that neither the senator nor anyone he works with has seen. We have no idea who wrote it. We could care less." I think it's we couldn't care less, but whatever. So they're batting it aside, but that would then create a fissure among Bernie supporters, right? So they admit, the authors who wrote this thing admit, by the way, they spoke to the New York Times and insisted on anonymity because they are not working within the campaign, and they're working with, in fact, without the campaign's authorization, which is clear from the campaign's response. But they say that, here's little snippets from their little manifesto. "Senator Sanders may graciously concede and enthusiastically endorse Hillary Clinton's bid to defeat the threatened right-wing takeover of our country by Donald Trump." And they go on to say, "Our organization would be devoted to mobilizing voters to defend our democracy in November and beyond." And they say Sanders is absolutely incredibly important in bringing together young, newly political Sanders supporters who see rejection of the Democratic Party establishment as core to their identity. And if he doesn't rather forcefully, sooner rather than later, tell them that they need to now, you got to accept reality. We didn't do it. We came close. Wow. But we need to pivot. If you can't work for her, then work against Trump. But I have to tell you, that means voting for Hillary. It doesn't mean disrupting Trump's rallies, which I think a lot of Sanders supporters think is what they'll do. That's counterproductive. That is against what I would hope we stand for, which is allowing people to peaceably assemble and express their thoughts. It's called the First Amendment. And when our side looks like we're suppressing, preventing people from exercising their First Amendment rights as American citizens, we look like jerks. We look like we're the stormtroopers then. And I'm afraid too many of Bernie's young supporters don't understand that. And it's not helpful. He turns that stuff, he turns every attempt by them into his benefit. Stop and think. He has been complaining that the system's rigged against him from day one. I think he's still complaining. He won! If it's rigged against him, but he wants the sympathy, he wants the underdog thing. He wants people to feel sorry for him. He wants to look like they're beleaguered, that these hordes are all after them, that the establishment. I mean, yeah, oh yeah, that system was so rigged. This guy knows how to play systems. That's why he's being audited. It's why we can't see his tax returns. Because, yeah, he plays that system just as any rich person does. Because it was made to be played. Beth writes, the IOC, International Olympic Committee, is not going to say anything because the people on that committee are wined and dined like crazy. Yeah, that's their job, to be wined and dined and have money slipped under the table to get by cities who want to get the next Olympics. I am sure many rubles, much caviar, and other gifts were given so that Russia won that Olympic bid. Oh, yeah. These folks are the junior FIFA. I am sure we will hear what Brazil did to get these summer games. Well, maybe they put some Zika mosquitoes in little boxes and said, you see this? We will set them loose in your room unless we get the Olympics. So, anyway. Oh, gosh, I thought we were done, and we're not. 5 minutes early. I miscalculated. I it's like running a marathon, and I came up short. Or I blew too much energy there at the beginning and didn't run the whole course. Dang. So, Did you see that the FBI is going to... Is it the FBI? Yeah, it is. The FBI is going to look into... why would it be the FBI? Wait a minute. I'm sorry. Hang on. Because I thought I screwed up. I screwed up! Yeah. The federal, the feds, it's not the FBI. Well, don't do that to me. The ACLU apparently says that the federal government is investigating gender discrimination. Guess where? In Hollywood. You know, I gotta tell you, I understand Jennifer Lawrence got $16 million for doing the Hunger Games, and like some guy got $18 million or something. But you know, yoo-hoo, feds. There are people, but I mean, the sex discrimination in Hollywood is obvious. It's obvious. And the women there have been starting to make a stink. There are no women directors. They don't get nominated for anything. You can't get if they're given anything, it's for, here it is. There's only been one woman who's won an Academy Award for Best Director. That was Catherine Bigelow for The Hurt Locker. She remains the first and only. No female directors have been nominated since. And less than 10% of the top grossing domestic films have been directed by women. So the ACLU did call on the government to investigate all of this in television and in movies. And the ACLU of Southern California said the EEOC, not the FBI, the EEOC is conducting a wide-ranging investigation into the entertainment industry's hiring practices. Well, all right, but I mean, there's a lot more. Well, it's an industry that needs to be cleaned up too. And it's not just Jennifer Lawrence making $17 million. I mean, there's plenty of people who labor in that industry. in jobs, at lower levels, and the women are just getting screwed left, right, and center. So, all right. And the other thing that I found that I had wondered if we need to talk about this. The commission, bipartisan commission that looked into 9/11 and came up sort of exonerating the Saudis, that is under attack now, and members of the commission are starting to squawk. So one of those members, who is a Republican, and this is one of those Republicans I respect, his name is John Lehman. He was the naval secretary, I think, under Reagan. And for some reason, I have this sense of him as a good man. I can't remember why, but in my head, he's a good man, an honorable man. He sat on the commission, and he now says, we've got to release the stuff we saw because it got papered over. He said there was an awful lot, this is a quote from him, there was an awful lot of participation by Saudi individuals in supporting the hijackers, and some of those people worked in the Saudi government. Our report, nonetheless, read as an exoneration of Saudi Arabia. So he and other members of that commission are now calling for the release, I'm sure you maybe read about this, of these 28 classified pages of the final report, which do implicate Saudi Arabia as the primary source of al-Qaeda funding. So imagine the pressure, imagine our addiction to their oil that would have created us, our willingness to still give them a buy on their dirty hands in 9/11. Amazing. And as the American people know, we spirited out when our airspace was closed down. We did let some Saudis get the hell out of the country. Right? And you wonder why conspiracy theorists spin their yarns. So, I was saying, remember when we were innocent? In some ways we still are. There's so much we don't know, and maybe we don't wanna. I don't know. All right, well, now that I managed to depress you like I'm supposed to, we're done. I did my hour. I done did it. So, you guys, I have one thing to say. Go Penguins! Thank you very much. And Buccos, don't let those friggin' Cubs sweep you again. At least win one. They're ridiculous. Okay, have a great weekend. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.